our clientele aged between 15 and way up. Our clients are 15 to 21, but our staff can be any age. And the difficulty we often have is encouraging them to eat fruit and vegetables. So that's an area that we found it extremely useful for, because it really enhances the flavour of fruit and vegetables, and it's much easier to convince them to try something that's new. And they love the drinking and they love the beauty water, so it's been quite a novelty. We've had it here for a while now and everyone's using it. In order to encourage people to eat, we've had to use a lot of seasonings, a lot of commercial flavourings, and we find we have greatly reduced, not completely eliminated, but we have greatly reduced the use of those, and completely eliminated it in some cases. For stews, for soups and fish dishes and that kind of food, it works wonders. It's really, really good. And most of our stews and our soups now contain little or no artificial seasonings, or commercial seasonings, shall we say. The most we would possibly use is the black pepper and maybe some sea salt. And that in itself has made a huge saving, and it's enhanced the food no end in that. You know, we can really draw out the flavourings of it. And another aspect is that we find we can use much cheaper cuts of meat than we were before, because when you soak the meat, first of all, we wash everything in the 2.5, particularly the cheaper cuts of meat, fish, chicken, everything. We wash it all, first of all, in 2.5, very quickly, drain it off, and then we soak it from anything maybe from 20 minutes to overnight in the 11.5, depending on when it's going to be used and what exactly the cut of meat is. And in that way, we find it really, really tenderises the meat. Even cuts of meat that would be a little more expensive, like we have some strip line beef here now that we're going to show you, steaks later on we'll show you what we do with those. But it makes it really, really tender. And there's no need to cook the food then quite as long for the same period of time. It cooks much quicker. Stews and anything that we do. Chicken, fish, it really draws all the injected things that are into it, that they use to preserve the food and to make it look plump and wonderful. It draws all that out, and you're left with the natural flavour of the food, which is a new phenomenon to most people, what actual chicken tastes like. And fish, we would use quite a lot of fish here, and by washing it in the 2.5 and then soaking it in the 11.5, you get beautiful fresh pieces of fish. We have a fantastic oven which costs a great deal of money, and we're really able to utilise that as well, because the food just cooks in such a short space of time now, and it just tastes wonderful. Here we have a bowl of just a little piece of broccoli that we've had soaking for a while. It's a very mild vegetable. It generally is quite tasteless. And here we've just cooked a little of it. And this lovely vibrant colour is what you get with the Kangen water. It really is beautiful and fresh, and when you taste it, it does taste fresh and like it's from the garden. Most vegetables do the same, you know. We have here, this is what we usually do in the mornings when we come into work. Whatever we're going to use for that day or for that morning, we get a big bowl. We have our, we have our 11.5 here, and we fill a bowl with that, and we peel whatever vegetables. Here we have some carrots and some parsnips and some potatoes that we're putting into the stew, and we're going to just work away with that. Now they've been in the water for, I would say, maybe about half an hour. The parsnips are something that people don't generally like too much. You kind of like them or hate them. But when we cook them here, we're going to take them out of that, and we'll put a little oil and maybe a little sea salt on them and pop them into the oven, and they're just sweet and gorgeous, and it really it just makes cooking vegetables a whole new dimension, really, you know. So yeah, the colour and the extended life, and things like the lettuce, maybe we might do a little bit of that now. we don't leave them too long, maybe 10, 15 minutes max, you know, it depends on really on what's going on. And like this vegetable here, they will come up lovely and fresh, and this dullness that you see on the tomatoes, that will have vanished. If we can have a bowl there, please, thank you. I'm just going to chop a little bit of, just excuse me now. I'm going to chop a little bit of the lettuce here, just like we do every day, and pop it into the water, like so. And we have our 11.5 here. I don't use the 2.5 on vegetables, just on the meat and fish and things like that. And I leave that just sitting there like that for a little while. And the cucumber is something else that really, really benefits from being in the water for a while. It's a tame enough vegetable as well. Doesn't really have an awful lot of flavour until you've popped it into the Kangen water for a while. And lo and behold, you've got a whole new cucumber. I really didn't know what cucumbers tasted like until I had Kangen water here for a while. And you would imagine that vegetables like this, onions and vegetables that perhaps you're going to peel away, that you don't need to put those in the Kangen water because whatever is drawing out is just drawing it out from the outside. That's actually a little bit misleading. If you peel them and do them as if they're just ready for to eat, and leave them sitting in the water for a little while like that, that's really how, because anything, the onions are another thing that people do. Well, I don't need to put the onions in, I'm going to take the skin off. But if you put onions, normally, in this country anyway, the onions are mostly from Spain, they're very strong. Since I was a small child, I've been, how do you stop yourself from crying when you're peeling onions? Stand it in the water, put some bread on your head, put something in your mouth. There was all sorts of, over the years, you know, the older chefs would have us doing the weirdest things in corners, just, you know, peeling buckets of onions. But the real secret to peeling onions now is to put them in the Kangen water. You can put them in the Kangen water for about 10 minutes and you can peel all day. No tears, all gone. So that's been the revelation. May I have another bowl? We'll do something with the tomatoes. Strawberries, we're going to do the strawberries there now. I know for some of the demonstrations, when I seen this done first, I thought, well, this is a bit of a joke, because actually what's happening is they usually put them in with the vines and everything into the water. So, well, it's the vine that's making the colour that you see in the glass afterwards. And so I came into work here and I went and I got my 11.5 and I took everything off the vine like this. So I was desperate to prove this Kangen water was a bit of a scam. It wasn't really, they couldn't possibly do everything that they said it was going to do. And I came in and this is what I did. And guess what? I got the exact same result. I got the exact same result. But they will taste, tomatoes, and may I have some strawberries? Tomatoes and strawberries are something that at this time of the year, particularly in this country, they're coming from places like Portugal and Spain, and they just taste tasteless. They look lovely. They look really, really nice, but they taste awful. So they're not something I would ever have eaten at this time of the year. I couldn't, you know, bear it. They just taste bitter and hard, and they were only ever for decoration purposes. Until, again, we found the Kangen water. And these strawberries, if you were to taste them now, they taste quite tasteless. Buy a packet in your local supermarket next time you're out. Take one, take half it, and eat it. And put the other half in a little cup of Kangen water, and give it about 5 minutes. And because we did it here last week, and we said maybe it's a different packet, maybe it's a different brand, maybe so. We said use the exact same strawberry without the water and with the water. And the taste was just transformed. Transformed. Really, really good. So, and it's just for demonstration purposes now, I'm using different bowls and different water all the time, but it's not necessary. You can reuse the same piece of water for similar foods not, you know, for everything naturally, but for similar foods, you can just reuse the water several times. Another thing, another fruit, the pears. Another fruit that we have at this time of the year, they're coming from Portugal also, I think, and they're hard and they're quite bitter and they're quite tasteless. They're like something you would have given to animals long ago. These we bought, I think, probably last Wednesday or Thursday. We've had them in the room in there, which is quite warm. So today they're quite soft, but they still taste quite tasteless, really. And I worked this on somebody earlier on. I peeled it and I gave them a slice of it. And I said, you know, what do you think of that? Oh, it's okay, it's soft. It's soft, you know. So I put the rest of the pear into some of the Kangen water, and I left it maybe, not too long, 5 or 10 minutes. And I said, try it now and tell me, can you notice any difference? And they were amazed. Now, it's amazing. Just because the fruit is soft and it looks ripe, doesn't necessarily mean that it'll have a lot of flavour. You must put it in the water. We're going to put it in there with the strawberries because they're similar. Just for the purposes of demonstration, I wouldn't necessarily put them in that water now if I was going to eat them, but and they're beautiful. Sometimes I just do a load of them like that, and I put them in a dish, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of 11.5, cover them, pop them in the oven, about 10-15 minutes. They're lovely and soft, and you get this lovely juice. Where are the ones in the glass? You get this lovely juice that comes off them then. And rather than using commercial jellies, which are very popular but quite tasteless, we use a little bit of leaf gelatin, soak it in just some ordinary 8.5 water, let it soften, and work it in through the hot juice that's come off, and we get a beautiful fruit composite with a little natural fruit jelly in the bottom. It's beautiful. Can I have the bowl of this bowl here? Pass me the red one, the big one. This here is our strawberries, which we soaked earlier on, some raspberries, and just put them on the cooker, a little sugar, a little 11.5, render them down and strain them. And you've got the most beautiful tasting natural jelly. No artificial colourings, no artificial anything, except for the 11.5, washed in and then cooked in, and a little sugar. If you're a little nervous about sugar, you can use honey, you can use whatever form of sweetener you prefer. For our age group that we cook for here in the Ashling Centre, one of the things they like in the evening time is a nice quiche or a nice pasta dish. So we're going to just put both together very quickly here now. This is some of the onion and some pepper and a little leek we've fried off after we washed it in the 11.5 as we demonstrated to you earlier. And we're just going to pop this in here and spin it around. And we have some of the lovely broccoli also, which you've seen earlier. We're going to just give that a wee chop. I'm just chopping some of the broccoli, and we've already put some of the onion and pepper into the base for the quiche here. And this is one way we try to encourage them to get vegetables into their system. A lot of them will be underweight and undernourished when they get here. This is an adolescent treatment centre for youngsters with drug and alcohol problems. And we try to invent various ways of encouraging them to eat vegetables. It's not the most popular food for that particular age group. So if we can have it looking really nice and tasting really good, we're halfway home. And we just pop that in there, like that. And we have some egg we've beaten up here earlier on, and we just pour that on top. And there we have our quiche for later on this evening. One of the things we make is a seafood chowder. And this has been wonderful here with the Kangen Water, because now we can make it without having to have fish stocks and without having to have bouillons and without having to have some of the better brand stock cubes and things like that in the press. We just soak it in here as we've done. We washed it in the 2.5 earlier. We've had it soaking in the 11.5 because some of this is haddock, it's smoked fish, which is can be quite salty, the smoking way that they do it, and quite rancid. Sometimes the youngsters might like it, or a bit strong. So we soak it in the 11.5, and it takes away all that fishy smell from the water or from the fish, and it gives it this lovely, gentle flavour. So we're going to pop that into, we have a base made here earlier, which was done exactly the same way as we've done earlier. We have some carrot and some celery, some onions, everything washed in the 11.5 water early this morning. So we're just going to pop that in there, and we'll have a little look at it in another wee while. Okay, I'm just going to pop that back on the heat, and it will look very, very nice, and it will taste really, really good. The only seasoning that has been added to that at this point is a little sea salt. Everything else is basic vegetables and 11.5 water and a little cream. This Kangen machine, it makes 7 different types of water, and one of them is a 2.5 acidic water, which is very sterile, and we use it here for wiping down and for cleaning down as we cook. We just spray it on the board like that, spray it on our knives. In Japan, they use it with all their sushi knives and for their raw fish and everything. So if it's good enough for the raw fish, it's good enough for a little bit of broccoli and what I've been doing here. And it's really, really good. The second water that we use here is the Beauty water. It's in this. Most people just spray it on. Everybody likes to spray it on. It's really fresh, wonderful for the skin, has wonderful properties used externally. But what a lot of people don't seem to realize is that this water is wonderful when you cook starchy dishes such as pasta, rice, beans, couscous, those kinds of foods. Right? You simply put it in the pot, which we've done here. We add our pasta straight in and just cook it as normal, as you would normally cook a bit of pasta, about 10 minutes on the oven like that. And we'll come back to it. What it does, it firms up the pasta, unless you're a really bad cook and you overcook it. There's nothing that any water can do about that, but you've got a lovely firm pasta which actually has a bite and a flavour, which is very difficult to get from something as plain as pasta and rice. Couscous is a similar one. You have to add garlic, you have to add onion, you have to, add things to it to give it flavour. You still have to add things to this to give it flavour, but on its own, it's something, yeah, you could pick at it. It's nice. It actually has a flavour. But this is another use for this water. Really, really good. And we have another little sauce here, which we'll use with our pasta later on. As we washed our tomatoes and our onions earlier on, we combined it and liquidized it here, and we made a tomato base. And we've just added some cream and a little seasoning to it, sea salt and a little black pepper, and that we will use with our pasta dish. Wonderful for vegetarians. Often very difficult to get vegetarian food to actually taste like something. But this is a great way to do it. It really livens up rice and pasta and a lot of those foods that one might consider bland otherwise. And the 11.5 then drawing out the flavour from the vegetables and the tomatoes in particular, the onions, the garlic. You really get a dish with a bit of body and a bit of texture and beautiful flavour. Now, the next thing I'm going to do here is some bacon. We have some bacon ribs and we have a nice piece of line of bacon. It is one of the most popular dishes anywhere in Ireland, but particularly with our youngsters here. This we had steeping in 11.5 for at least overnight. I think we probably soaked it on Friday when we left, but overnight is fine. Overnight is fine. We're just going to take those out, and because we've got a steam convection oven here, normally when we cook in that, the steam comes in from the water that's on the mains. So to maintain the 11.5 Kangen water in the cooking, we now put it into the dish with 11.5 water, and then we cover it with some tin foil, and we just insert the probe through the tin foil, and we cook it on a dry heat, rather than, people who are in the commercial business will know about, you know, half and half, and on the steam heat. So we cook everything now on the dry heat, and the old-fashioned way, by adding some of the Kangen water to the dish with the meat in it, and then we cover it, and that creates the steam inside in the container. So this we will cut a little later on as well. It's just a very ordinary piece of line of bacon, and the flavour is quite extraordinary. It's one of the meats that really comes up. It draws out the salt, and it draws out whatever else is added. I'm not sure but what it exactly does to it, but it melts in your mouth literally when you're finished with that. The water then that we have left here, like my grandmother used to do, we now add this to the cabbage and pop it on the range. This cabbage, ordinary Irish everyday cabbage from down the road, has been washed and soaked in 11.5 for about an hour. And we're just going to add our Kangen bacon water straight onto that, and we're going to pop it onto the range. Right here, where our pasta we talked about earlier is spot on, just cooked, wonderful. And we're going to pop that on there. We'll turn it up a wee bit, and someone might help me out here. Now the pasta, we're going to drain it away here, just straight into the dish like this. When we make a large quantity of this, normally we would run it under the cold tap in the sink to stop the cooking process. Nowadays we try not to do that, because we're just going back to where we came from. If need be, if we have a large quantity of it, we will have some extra beauty water which we'll throw on it to cool it down. But normally we have the sauce just ready, and we continue that process. We just add it to our bowl like so. This is the exact same process for rice, couscous, whatever you're adding to them, then you just have it ready, and we proceed. It's the texture of it. It's difficult to get it across in words, just what this water does for something like pasta. It's cooked, but it's firm. It's not messy. It's not sticky. It doesn't glue together like it normally would. Whatever it does with the starch, normally when you cook that in the ordinary water, you'd run it on, and you can see the starch actually run out of it. The same with the rice. You can see the starch run away in the sink, and the residue from it. You don't get that with this beauty water, cooking it like this. It's really very special what it does. And we have our sauce here then, which is prepared, as I said earlier on, and it's just added on like so. You can add smoky bacon, you can add your salami, you can add whatever seasonings or flavors you want, but we've had a basic sauce cooked straight from the kitchen, using all fresh vegetables and all fresh products, and the flavour is wonderful. There is nothing added to this except sea salt. We have put nothing else to season it, only the fresh vegetables. We also have an Irish stew. We like to promote and use our fresh products. We have a wonderful butcher just down the road, and all the meat that we cook here comes in fresh every day. So we have the best of lamb, the best of beef, the best of bacon just on our doorstep. And by using the Kangen water, it really enhances that. For restaurants or for you at home, it really is the best way. It's the best seasoning that you can possibly add to your food is 11.5. So we're just going to put a little Irish stew into this one here. Here we have an Irish stew, Irish lamb from the butcher's down the road. with some of our Kangen vegetables washed as I told you earlier, and the process we did with all the other vegetables, and some potatoes, a stable Irish diet, potatoes. It's wonderful. There has absolutely nothing been added to this except sea salt, nothing else. It is quite delicious. They love it. Stew is something that is very difficult to get that age group to eat. It's not something that they're growing up with nowadays. They tend to be into fast food and burgers and anything with chicken and crumbs and things like that on it, they will eat. This particular kind of food is difficult enough to get them to eat. But it just goes down, it sits there. It's like eating ice cream. It's beautiful. It's hard to get that across on the video without actually tasting it, but take my word for it, it's really, really good. The other thing I have prepared here as well is some seafood chowder. The seafood that we saw earlier, which we cooked just a little while ago, we now have it in this pot, and we're just going to add it to that bowl with some vegetables, some 11.5 water, and some fresh cream, and that's all has been added to that. And we're just going to pop that in there. It's not all going to fit, but we got a little more seafood into that. Okay. And for a day like you can have in Ireland, you can have a winter's day at any time of the year in this country. And these are wonderful dishes for that. The likes of this, you can spice it up and make a stroganoff or whatever. You can just do anything with it. Tomatoes instead of potatoes, and there is nothing you can actually cook that you can't cook with this 11.5 water that won't be the better for having been cooked and the food having been washed and used and soaked in this 11.5. It really is the most amazing commodity that I have come across in my cooking experience, in my cooking lifetime, and I've been doing it a long time. Okay, here I've got some strip line steak, beef, from the butcher's again down the road. This has been washed in 2.5 and has been soaked in 11.5 for about 2 hours, I would say. We've stripped it off. This is one of the meats that come up really, really good when it's soaked in the 11.5. I don't think you could soak it for too long, but all the added colouring and everything has been drawn out of it. So we've got a fleshy colour, which is really nice. The texture of this meat when we cook it will be really, really good. I've just got a little dressing here, just some mustard and some garlic and some peppercorns, and I'm just going to spread that on top and leave it to marinate. I absolutely promise you that you pop this on the pan. Not everybody likes meat with the red still in it. A lot of the time, because I think maybe it just takes too much eating. It's too tough. It's very difficult to get, unless you have a really nice piece of fillet steak or something, it's very difficult to eat meat that is rare or even medium rare for a lot of people. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people. This meat that's been soaked in the 11.5, I absolutely guarantee you can eat it with at least medium rare. At least medium rare when it's been soaked in the 11.5. We're just going to brush some seasoning on top like this, and we're going to leave it to marinate for a little while. Really, it's by way of encouraging people to eat good quality meat. You can do the same with any of the round steak or any of that. It just takes a little more cooking then afterwards to do it. But the longer it's in the 11.5, the more tender it'll become. Now you can make fillet steak out of round steak, that's just impossible, but you can make it very soft and very edible and very flavoursome. And like that too. You don't need to add the world of seasonings to it unless you want to make a curry or you want to make it, you want it to taste a specific way. But otherwise, Very little seasoning will do the job just as well. Okay? We're just going to leave the steak marinate now for a little while. One of the nice things to serve this with, which I do here, and you can do it hot or cold afterwards, is we have here some, it's been soaking earlier on, sweet potato, some butter squash, we've got some parsnips, which are beautiful in the 11.5, we've got some carrot, you could add onion, you can add pepper, you can add as much as you like to this. Once it's been soaked in the 11.5 for a little while, it just brings out the flavour. And to this, I just simply drizzle a little oil, and then I add a little sea salt, and a little of whatever, maybe a little Cajun seasoning or whatever, and I do this in the oven quite fast, and cook it in quite a hot oven, and you just get this most aromatic vegetable served with a piece of steak. You don't need potatoes, you don't need chips, maybe a little green salad, we've got that washed from earlier on. It's quite delicious. I'm just going to get a little oil from here. We'll just pop, drizzle. You don't need too much of anything. Just a little oil on there. Some of them are, it's a great colour. Peppers do really good in this. Onion, like banana onion or red onion. All of those things that you know, that have peels and skins on. The reason I do this is because sometimes you think, because you're going to peel the vegetable, you don't need to wash it, you don't need to soak it in the 11.5. You actually do, and the longer you can soak it, if you can give it an hour, if you can give it 2 hours, so much the better. It's just able to draw out the flavour in a way that you just won't get doing it any other way. That one is just a little bit on the big side. And we'll put a little salt in there, if that's okay. And you pop that into a nice hot oven and serve with your steak and a little green salad. And this is lovely in the summer time, just as a vegetable or with a barbecue or on the barbecue even. There's endless things that you can do. All right, simple, everyday vegetables off the shelf from our local supermarket. We're in a very small part of the country here, a little village, and we have a super value supermarket. We're not exposed to a massive big Tesco's or any of the bigger brands of supermarkets, so you know, we're limited enough in the variety that we can have. So it's making the best use of what's available, and the Kangen Water really allows us to do that, make the best use of what's available, and you know, what we can get in the local shop down the road, right around the corner, and that's the beauty of this. We can really enhance and make very simple things seem really wonderful. I hope I've been able to demonstrate to you some of the ways I use the Kangen Water here in my kitchen at the Ashton Adolescent Treatment Centre in Ballyragget. I hope you will use it in yours, and I wish you the very best with it.